everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay, cool. So I'm André Müller from Leipzig, and I'm currently at the University of Zurich doing my PhD in linguistics. And the talk I will be giving today will be about writing systems of the world, as you read. And I slightly changed the talk because I thought, well, actually it's easy to find out about writing systems because there's always Polyglot online. And well, if you want to know something about writing systems, you can always find it online, and you can always find it in Wikipedia, Polyglot, several other pages, books. And so I thought I will change the topic a little bit, but only a little bit. So I will specifically talk about how the writing systems mark tones. Tones in the sense of tonal languages like Chinese and Vietnamese and languages like that. So you know that several languages have tones, and what I'm going to talk about is how they mark it in their writing systems. So you will also have the chance to see some amazing writing systems. Yeah, as you might have noticed during the quiz the other day, I know quite some writing systems myself. I have learned 23 writing systems that I am able to read and write, even though I don't know the languages sometimes. So I can read and write Georgian, but I don't speak any Georgian at all. But it's cool because then you can use dictionaries. You can use Georgian dictionaries even though you don't speak the language. Yeah. And I'll just start. So, yeah, tones and tonal languages. Yeah. So what are tones? Or what are tonal languages? So tonal languages are languages with tones. What are tones? So tones or tonal languages are languages that use a change in the frequency to show a difference in meaning. So yeah. So they have words, minimal pairs, that are pairs of words that are only distinguished in one phonetical feature, like a consonant. Like if I say, well, make and bake in English, then you notice, okay, there's an M, there's a B, those are different. If you change them, the meaning gets different. One means make and one means bake, yeah. Yeah. And in some languages of the world, actually in quite many languages of the world, you also have a segment that's not a consonant or a vowel, but it's a tone. So in Chinese, you have a difference between ma and ma and ma and ma, for example. Yeah. So I think you get the meaning of tones. Okay, what else? That's what I just said, yeah. So minimal pairs that are only different in tone height, like ma, ma, ma. Or curve, that's like ma or ma. Or sometimes ma or ma. Not in Chinese in this case, but yeah, those exist. For example, Thai, because we always take Chinese as an example, so I choose Thai. So there are 5 tones, for example, na, 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 na. Those are the 5 Thai tones. And they all mean different words. I think, especially with na, they all have a meaning on their own. So, and you might think that tonal languages are very scarce, very seldom in the world. Cool. Very seldom in the world, but no, they are not. There are actually quite a lot of tonal languages. For example, distribution of tonal languages. Oh. Yes, yeah. This is just the introduction. So, okay, distribution of tonal languages. This is a map from WALS, from the World Atlas of Language Structures, devised in my hometown in Leipzig. Yeah, there you have a map of the world, and the colors stand for the tonal languages. So blue stands for no tones at all. Like English, you see there, Europe, the whole of Europe is just blue because we usually don't have tones. There are some simple tone systems with maybe 2 tones. I think the definition for this is that they have 2 tones. And you can see that in Europe you have at least two languages. One is Norwegian in this case. You could also say that, I mean, you could add Swedish to that map, but so Norwegian and Swedish have some kind of tone, and I will talk about that later. So Norwegian would be this one, this little dot here. That's Norwegian, and this, I think it's either Lithuanian or Latvian, but I think they both have some kind of tonal system. And another language in Europe that is said to have some kind of tones is usually Serbian, or I think also Serbo-Croatian, if I may say that. Yeah. Yes, Serbian is said to have tones, but I will come to that later. I have an example of those. And you can see, yeah, they are spread over the Americas. There are some tonal languages. You have some, well, yeah, you might wonder about Japanese. Does Japanese have tones? Usually you would say no, but according to the definition by Ian Madison, who was a phonetician, a very famous phonetician, Japanese falls into the tonal category because it has a stress pattern where you suddenly go down with your voice. It's called downstep. So, well, I can't do that. I don't speak Japanese. Yeah, and the red languages are the languages with a complex tone system with more than two tones. So between 3 and I think the record for tones is something between 11 and 14, depending on the grammar. So there are some languages here in southern China, some Thai Kadai languages and some Sino-Tibetan languages, which are claimed to have 11 to 14 tones. And you can see that in Africa, almost, well, quite many of the languages of Africa are tonal, and you might wonder about that. This little blue fellow here is Swahili, that doesn't have tones, but all the other related languages, all the other Bantu languages have tone. Tone is not very important in Bantu, I would say. It usually does not distinguish between meanings, but sometimes that can happen. Like in Swedish, you usually don't, tone in Swedish is usually not very important, but you have minimal pairs, like, I'm not sure if I pronounced this right, but you have anden and anden, something like that, which have two different meanings. Okay, so this is how they are spread over the world. Now to the writing systems. If I'm too fast, you can always raise your hand or say something. Yeah, but I hope that in the end of the talk I could talk about writing systems in general and maybe how to learn them or something, because maybe that's more interesting for you, I'm not sure. Okay, so for more general information about writing systems, I recommend the following websites or books. So there's the book by Florian Kolmas, Writing Systems of the World. Well, that's, yeah, just search for writing systems and you will find a lot of books. And I think Florian Kolmas is one of the better known ones. I haven't read it myself, but yeah. Then there's an old book. I think it's available only in German, but I'm not sure. Maybe there's an English translation. It's called Das Buch der Schrift, enthalten die Schriftzeichen und Alphabete aller Zeiten und aller Völker des Erdkreises. Judging from the title, you can see that it's more than 100 years old. Yeah, it was written in Austria in 1880, and this is one of the books. Yeah, actually, I think that's a main influence for me to start studying linguistics, to get interested in writing systems, because I got it as a present as a little child, and yeah, I just learned it by heart. No, no, not all of them, but it's an amazing. Yeah. Yeah, and I only knew Cyrillic and Arabic and Latin and Greek. No. Yeah, it started in primary school. Okay, and there's another book. Yeah. There's another book with the same title as the first one, Writing Systems of the World. I assume that title sticks, by Nakanishi Akira. Sorry, I don't know the tones of his name. It's Japanese, obviously. So, yeah. And of course, I could not mention Omniglot by Simon Ager. And yeah, you can find it on his website. I mean, most of you might know this website, I hope. Yeah. This is also a major source of my knowledge about writing systems, I have to admit. So he's not here. Not here yet? Okay, no problem. So, questions. Not questions by you or by me, but questions that arise in general. Are tonal about this topic, of course. So, are tonal contrasts in languages marked at all? Like, you shook your head when I mentioned Serbian, because, well, Serbian doesn't note any tones, but I will come to that later. The second question is how tonal contrasts are marked, and this will be the main point. And, well, why the tonal contrasts are marked in this way. Sometimes it's difficult to say because someone invented the writing system at some point and just thought, well, let's take this system. Yeah. So maybe I cannot answer the last question for every case. So, next thing. Next thing, not a language, but IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet. This is what I will be using throughout my talk, because, well, every phonetician, every linguist should know this system, and you probably have been at the talk of Česko, and IPA is amazing because you can use it to write down practically every sound that occurs in the languages of the world and more sometimes. So yeah, it's the International Phonetic Alphabet. Yeah. Yeah, you mean it's so useful for us, even though we are not linguists, we can use this to learn. Yeah, usually when I start learning a language, I start with the phonetics, well, with the alphabet, and then with the phonetics. These are connected anyway, so yeah. And usually I don't at the first time, I don't speak with native speakers or listen to audio recordings. I just read the IPA, and then I get the, well, at least I'd say a general idea of how it's pronounced, and then I can listen to the talking or YouTube or something. Yeah. So how do we mark tones? We linguists, how do we mark tones in IPA? There are, well, 3 possibilities that are common. This is the first possibility. This might remind you of the pinyin system in Chinese, but it's actually different. Here, this is very, very straightforward and very intuitive, because here you can see the tone height. So this, for example, is ma. This would be a high tone. You can see the line is high, so it's a high tone. Ma, mid-tone, low tone, ma, ma, ma. And actually this is written in IPA. It can be written like this or like this. So a high tone in IPA is marked with a little acute accent. Isn't that a cute accent? Okay. You can imagine that in Chinese, if you have this in Chinese, it would be a raising tone. So if that would be a Chinese syllable, it would be pronounced ma. But this is IPA, so this is ma. And you can memorize it in the way that this is like an arrow. It points to the top, so it is a high tone. Mid-tones are usually not marked, but sometimes if you want to be precise, you can mark them, usually with a bar, a macron on the top, and this is like an arrow pointing to this side. So this is ma. It's like normal tone height, and the low tone is marked with a grave accent, pointing to the bottom. So this is ma. And if you combine them, then you can have a contour. Yeah, actually I can do this and this. So these 3 are called the register tones because they have a register like high, mid, low. And these are the contour tones. That means you combine high and low and get a falling tone, or low and high, and you get a rising tone. And these are marked by this. So this is a combination of a high tone, acute accent, and a low tone, grave accent. So you have it falling. So high to low is falling, ma. And this is how it's marked in IPA. And I, as a mnemonic help, I just imagine that it's like a slope. It's like a little hill, and then if you're standing on the top, you will slide down. So it's like, imagine you are the pronunciation, and you're sliding down this little hill, and it's like ma, sort of. Yeah, and yeah, we have a raising tone. That's like, for example, like ma. This one here is rising from the mid tone to the high tone, but some of you have been to the talk to the talk about Cantonese, and Cantonese also has a low rising tone, so it's not from 3 to 5, like mid-level to high level, but it's from 1 to 3, for example. So some languages distinguish between ma and ma. Usually this is written like this, so low tone and a high tone combined is a rising tone. And yeah. Another way, which is often used in grammars and some dictionaries, especially in Southern Asia, is tonal numbers. Like 5 means high tone, 1 means low tone, and the combination means a combination of that. So sometimes you have 4-2, which means falling but not completely falling, something like that. But I don't think that's intuitive, because when I read this, I have to think, wait, 5-1, that's ma, okay, but it takes a lot of time. But here you can see it immediately, and here, if you memorize how it works, then you can see it immediately as well. So that's the IPA. And now let's get to the real languages. We start with Chinese, because that's the most well-known language with tones. How does Chinese mark tones? We have Chinese is a Sino-Tibetan language, and it's spoken mainly in China and Taiwan, but there are so many other places in the world where Chinese is spoken, like here in this conference. I have an example sentence that's 汉字真没有办法只是声调. So this is how Chinese is written. You've all seen this. As you can imagine, or as you probably know, tone is not marked in the writing system. They mark everything else, but not tones. Okay, so none of these little scribbles indicates anything about tone at all. So if I don't know one of those characters, I can sometimes guess the pronunciation because it looks similar to another character, which then sometimes indicates the pronunciation, but I can never guess the tone. So I really have to know how the tones are pronounced. But there's a help. There is the so-called pinyin system. That's this one. You've all seen this. In the quiz, we had the tongue twister in pinyin as well, which is useful because sometimes I don't remember the tones. And you have these little diacritics, the diacritic marks, and they mark the tone. So those are a little different from what we had before for the IPA. So these, I'm not sure if you can see this in the back row, but these are pointing down. These are grave accent. And you remember in IPA, if this would be IPA, then this would be something like Hanzi, a low tone. But this is pinyin, and this is a little more intuitive, maybe even. So it's a grave accent, and that means it's a falling tone. So you pronounce it like this, Hanzi. And this is not a mid-tone, like in the IPA. This is a high tone, a high, flat, even tone. So this is zhen. And here we have a rising tone. It's pointing upwards. It's not a high tone, like in IPA. It's a rising tone. So it's mei. Yeah?
Sorry, just more or less like the second system that you have showed.
The second?
You showed three systems in IPA.
Yeah. Yeah.
Refer to that. It's quite very similar.
Yeah. That's true. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. It works in a similar way as these, actually. So the mid-tone in Chinese is marked with a bar, or with a dash, actually. This one, it's marked with a dash. Yeah, that's true. And the falling tone is like this. Like, it's going down. And we have another tone in Chinese. I quickly go back to here. We have a tone, you can see it here, here, and here. That's the dipping. It's sometimes called the dipping tone. It's falling and rising. So it's yo and fa and zhi. Yeah, it really sounds like that, but it depends on the region. Some speakers in southern China just would say yo, fa, and zhi. Yeah, a question? Yes, yes, exactly. So in IPA, these would be written. I think in this case it's 213 or something, but you would have three numbers for this. So starting at 2, going down to 1, and then going slightly further up to 3. So this would be 213. And also in the other system with the lines, you would have like a little hook. And yeah, okay. So 汉字真没有办法，只是声调。You can sort of follow the tones. There's another system used in Taiwan. So pinyin is used mainly in mainland China, but there's this system used in Taiwan. It's called Zhuyin Fuhao, or better known by the word bopomorpho. And they use weird characters, I would say, to represent the sounds, the consonant and vowels of the language, and they also mark the tones in approximately the same way as pinyin does. So you have the falling tones here. The mid tone is not marked at all. A rising tone, a dipping tone, and you get the rest. Yeah. Okay, there is a system not being, I think it's not in use anymore, and I think it's extremely weird. It's called Romatzi or something. It's very weird because they change the aspect of the syllable to represent the tones. So it's very unintuitive. So they doubled the last consonant to show that it's a falling tone. If there is no consonant, they add an H. Mid-tones are just the normal syllable. Sometimes if they write a vowel, it's a rising tone, and here you have a falling tone again with doubled N. If they have a W instead of an O at the end, it means a falling tone, something like that, but it's very idiosyncratic. Yeah, and this is the way I would write this sentence in IPA. 汉字真没有办法只是声调. So this dipping tone can sometimes be analyzed as a low tone, because in southern dialect it's pronounced mainly as a low tone. There's a question.
I've seen Royal Romancy on an organization sign in Guilin.
In Guilin, that's interesting. Okay, I've never seen this before. That's interesting choice. Yeah, was it an old organization or probably? Okay, maybe. I think the system was used in the 50s sometime. Yeah.
By the way, there are 4 or 5 more systems.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there are more systems like Wade Giles and Yale, and some of them mark tones, some of them sometimes mark tones. You can write pinyin without tones, but then you might not be understood. Okay, yeah, those exist. And there is not even a one-to-one match between characters and tones. So for example, if I see those characters, I usually can, because I know these characters, I know the tones. But for example, this character, the famous woman with the child, it means good in Chinese. It's usually pronounced hao, that would be good. Ni hao, that's good. I mean, that means hello. But it can also be pronounced hao. And in that case, it means to like. Did I get the tone right? Is it the 4th tone? Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. So sometimes, very unfrequently, you can say, 我好语言. I like languages, but I think it's not common nowadays. Like, yeah, ik hou van, yeah. ik hou van jou. Good point. I should keep that in mind. Okay, now, so in Chinese we had no marking for the actual language. Are there more languages without any marking? Yes, there are. For example, Zulu, Bantu languages in Southern Africa. So you have a word like this. I think it's Ugu Ngoba. Ugu Ngoba. Ugu Hoba. I studied one semester of Xhosa, but that's years ago. So okay, so you see, this is the orthography. Tones are not marked in Zulu, but there are tones, and sometimes they distinguish between meanings, but not very frequently. So you have a high tone on the first U, and you have a rising tone on the long O here, which is even as well breathy voiced. So it's like O. So Ugu Hoba. Yeah. There's Jingpo, a little language spoken in Myanmar. It's related to Burmese and Chinese, and because I'm doing my PhD on languages in northern Burma, this is one of the languages I'm very interested in at the moment. You write it with the Latin alphabet, so a word like thunderbolt is written like this, no tone markings, but it does have tone, and it even sometimes has glottal stops at the end, which are not marked in the language. So this would be pronounced something similar to mu ache. Mu ache means thunderbolt, no marking. And in this language, tone is actually very important because you always have a difference between words, which is only represented with the tones, but not in writing. There's another language, Isthmus Zapotec, a language in Mexico. For example, the word for wrist bone is written like that and it's pronounced Chitapora na, something like that. So no markings, but still it does have tones. I think it has 3 tones, like low, high, and rising. Maybe it also has falling, I'm not sure. So there's Serbian. Now that's the... I saw some people shaking their heads because usually we don't think, well, Serbian, does it have tones? It has something similar, and depending on the definition of tone, you could say that Serbian and Swedish and Norwegian and Lithuanian has tones. So for example, there's the word for carpenter. For those of you who can read Cyrillic, and probably also for the rest, you can see there are no tone markings. But yeah, there are people who speak Serbian, I think. Yeah, for example, could you pronounce the word? Okay, so I hear that it's really pronounced like snažan stolar. So it's like snažan stolar. Oh wow, I didn't know. Oh. Ah, cool. Okay. Do you want to have the microphone to say it again? The Gora sentence?
Yeah, yeah, I can try. I'm not sure if I will get it correctly, but yeah. Gore, 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 gore. um, yeah, it's something that, as far as I remember, some kind of pine trees or something burning on the hills. Something. I really don't remember now.
Very romantic. Yeah. Yeah. So you might have thought, well, Gora, 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 Gora. That's like I would say if when fliegen, 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 blah blah blah. But actually, you can those tones really distinguish between the words. Some of those are long vowels, some of them are short vowels. Sometimes it's rising tone, the falling tone. Yeah. So, but it's questionable a little bit. So, yeah. The tones are on at the font. Yeah. It's distinguishing. Like those words were distinguished by the tone. So if I would say, I'm sure Gora, it might be misunderstood if I mean Gora or something. And there, they are on the accented syllable probably. So it's snažan, snažan with the rising tone, snažan, and then stolar. Yeah, there are minimal pairs, like the Gora. No, not in these words, but I didn't know the minimal pairs. I just picked a word from the dictionary with 2 tones. Yeah, but it wouldn't have tones. I mean, it wouldn't have a tonal distinction. In Serbian, you could say Gora and Gora, or something like that. And they would say the first one means pine tree and the second one means burn, or something like that. Well, I hear it, but since Russian is not a tonal language. Yeah. Well, it depends on the linguist who analyzes this. So many people would say no, it's not a tonal language, but they might say the same about Zulu. But well, anyways. And there's Punjabi, as I learned during this conference. There's Punjabi spoken in Pakistan and India, related to Hindi and so on. And they developed tones. There are two writing systems for those, one with the Arabic system and one with the Gurmukhi writing. And the word means language. I didn't even add that because Bhasa, of course, means language. And this is how the word is spelled. So for you to be able to read it, so it's spelled with a BH at the beginning, and these aspirated voiced consonants, as I've been told, developed into falling into low tones. So it's not pronounced Bhasha or Basha like in some languages, but Basha. So with a low tone. Okay. I think I have to be more quick. Okay. Tone marking in Vietnamese. Vietnamese is a language which marks the tone very prominently. It has 6 tones, and they are marked by diacritic marks. So no marking at all means mid-tone, like ah. A grave accent means a low falling tone, like this. So it's like ah. And an acute accent means high rising tone, like ah. And then you have a dot below the letter. If you have a dot below the letter, it means a falling tone, which is also glottalized, which is similar like in Danish. So you have something like ah, no ah, like with a stø, but in Vietnamese. And falling rising tone it also has. So this is how it's marked, and it's 313. That also answers your question, and it's written with a little question mark on the letter without the dot. And it's like ah, almost like the Chinese one ah. And then there is glottalized rising. So this is ah. I don't speak. In the middle, more or less, yeah. Yeah, yeah, right. Sometimes I think it sometimes can be at the end, but I'm not sure. Sometimes you have words like sang, and they sound very Danish to me. How do you say bad in Danish? It's probably something sang or something. Sang, okay. Yeah. This is a graphic of the pronunciation of the tones, so you can follow them. So this is the of the Vietnamese tones. You had something similar for Cantonese. It looked almost the same. And here the words, those are actually the names for the tones and the official names for the tones in Vietnamese. And they happen to not only represent the tones they represent, but they also have a meaning, something like flat or falling or dipping or something. So that's very amazing. So you can see that this is like ngã. So there's a little stop in the middle. Then you have this one, which would be it's just rising. It's like suk. This one is quite flat, like ngang. This is slightly falling, but it's very short. So this is where a glottal stop would be expected. So this is probably like nang or something. And this one is green, is very bad to see. It's dipping like hoi. And the last one would be, well, it's the lowest tone. It's almost flat, but a little falling. So it's hyuen or something. Hyuen. Yeah. No, it's not 2 syllables. It looks like 2 syllables. It looks like huyen, and probably you know the famous, here, the ubiquitous family name written like Nguyen, but it's not pronounced Nguyen. It's like with a ur. It's like ur in the middle. So it's this one would be. Wait a second. It would be like Nguyen. I think I hope I pronounce it more or less correctly. So Nguyen is not Nguyen or Guyen or something. It's Nguyen. Okay. This is an example of Vietnamese writing. I copied it from Wikipedia. So you see all over the place you have little diacritics on the letters. So that would be like vi học tiếng Việt là môn học, and so on. Okay. Other languages with tone diacritics is Old Greek or Ancient Greek. So this, I have no idea what it means. I just copied it from some text. And And the tone marks, so it has a grave accent, which means a low tone. So this word is pronounced like autar, autar. And of course, in modern Greek, it's pronounced differently, probably aftar or something, aftar. But in ancient Greek, it was autar. This is ho, no tone. Doisin, doisin. And, huh? Doisin, doisin. No, no. That's modern Greek. This is ancient Greek. This is old Greek. No, it's not. It's not. The modern, for example, if I come to this and I will tell you that this word is pronounced apeleto. You will say, no, it's afeleto. It's of course it's a phi, but the phi was pronounced p in ancient Greek. I mean, yeah. So this word is really doisin. It's an omicron and a iota, and it really was pronounced o and e. And the same goes for this. Now it's pronounced af, but it used to be pronounced au. So of course the pronunciation changed from ancient Greek to modern Greek. Of course it also depends from the time. Yeah, mm. It used to be, but before that it was always pronounced P-A, like an aspirated P. We know that for sure. Yeah, we know that for sure that it was pronounced like pa. And then in some island, it's slightly one after another, it changed to f, or maybe first to f, and then to f. And yeah, it's also pronounced as a yeah. Mm. But in Latin it was not written with an F, but with a PH. Well, and in Latin it was, you can see in Latin that it used to be pronounced PH, because Latin still uses PH, even though Latin had an F. So some words, probably there are some words in Latin that are written with an F that come from Greek, phi, but most of them were written and pronounced with a P. You can see that in misspellings in texts on walls, like sometimes they forget the H and they write Pilipos or Pilosopos without the H or something. Well, but I didn't want to point that out. I just wanted to show the tones. I just wanted to take your attention to the tones. So ancient Greek used to have some kind of tones. So this is rising and falling, so doisin, and here you have a, this is usually a high tone, I think, but if the syllable is long, then it's sometimes rising. So in this case it would be apeleto. It was apeleto. Of course, if that word still exists nowadays, it would be afileto. Yeah. Okay. There is Yoruba, spoken in Nigeria. They mark the tones, maybe not always, but usually the tones are marked. You have a grave accent and an acute accent. This would be pronounced Ede Yoruba. Yoruba, yeah. There's Yucatec Maya. I just show the example. They also sometimes mark the tones, but sometimes not. Maya tan. That's an ejective, tan. Okay. Now to a different language, Hmong, spoken in southern China, central China. It has the so-called Romanized popular alphabet that was invented, I'm not sure when, but it was invented. And they they use tonal, they use letters to represent the tones. So other languages had accents, they use letters. So for example, these are different words. They actually exist, and these are not pronounced as they look. It's not pop, paw, pos, podge, pov, pom, pot, pock, or something. They are just paw, but with different tones, like paw, wait, paw, 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 paw. That's creaky. Yeah, you might wonder about creaky voice. Creaky voice, that means that you constrict your glottis and you try to pronounce it like this. So these two tones are like paw and paw. And the last one is low, falling, breathy. So it's low, it's falling, and it's breathy. Breathy is like this. So this is ba, 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 something like that. Okay. And it looks very weird if you have an example text like this. So if you see this, you think, wow, how is this pronounced? Oh my God. And then you have words like this, looking like moop or something. But they also use the double vowels to represent nasalization. So this is actually the word for Hmong, for the language itself. It's pronounced with a voiceless M, and then a nasal O, and then a high tone. So Hmong, Hmong. Yeah. So this is the IPA representation. Usually I plan to read this out, but I don't think we have time. So yeah, I don't speak Hmong, so it wouldn't be very accurate probably. I don't speak Hmong, not yet, at least. Then there's Shan, another language from Burma, which is quite interesting and uses, yeah, I put it here because yeah, it fits. Spoken in Myanmar, it's a Thai Kadai language, closely related to Thai. Well, not that closely, but it's related to Thai. It's based on the Burmese script, and it has 5 tones, which are marked by little extra characters. You have a colon for the high tone, you have a comma for the low tone, you have a semicolon for the mid tone, and you have a full stop around as a circle for the falling tone, which happens to be also creaky, so like ka. And if you don't write a tone character, that means it's a rising tone. So like ga, 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 ga. And it looks like this in writing. So yeah, I transcribed it, so it would be something like mo go za he beng neng mi nuk ge ba zao o. But I can understand some of these words because they are quite similar to Thai, but well, I didn't have the time to try to understand this text. Okay. Now to Burmese, from which Shan borrowed the writing. So Burmese script. It has 4 tones. It's a bit difficult to say that all of those are tones. They are mostly marked by extra characters. So this is the example. This is a little T. So if I remove this as the T, does anyone of you speak Georgian? Yeah, you might notice that this looks exactly like the Kartvelian, but like the Georgian letter for T. It's a coincidence, but it's a funny one. And if you don't have a tone mark after that, like it's a T and it's a ta, it's usually a low tone, but at the end of a sentence it can become a rising tone. If you have a colon at the end, it's a high tone, just like in Shan. At the end of a sentence, it can be a falling tone, so it's ta or ta. If you have a dot below the vowel, or if you don't write the a at all, it's creaky voiced and high, and sometimes with a glottal stop at the end. That depends on the dialect and weather and whatever. So it's like da or ta or ta. Yeah, I have trouble with the tones in Burmese, I have to admit. And then there is the so-called stopped tone, which I wouldn't call tone myself because it just ends in a glottal stop. This is a T, this is a K. This is the so-called killer hook. It's really called that way, even in Burmese. At that, and so the K is actually not pronounced as a K. It's just that. That's called the stopped tone or the killed tone. Yeah. There is an exception. There are many exceptions to this. So sometimes you don't have this colon, but oh no, where was it? Sometimes you don't have the colon, but it's still a high tone, and you have to change everything. But I won't go into detail. It's terrible. Yeah. An example for Burmese is no, I don't wear the shirt. It's written on the shirt here. If I imagine that I wear the shirt of the conference, there's Burmese. It's spelled like this. Sometimes people call it bubble script for obvious reasons. And so this is Burmese. This is how it's written in Latin letters. I mean, it's not written in Latin letters, but this is the transliteration, and this is the pronunciation. Something like "ba da zga myo myo pyo nang do tum ya dui zong we." Huh? The little box. the little box is amazing. It's the little box is what I think is the coolest feature of Burmese. It's nothing special. It's actually just a year following the letter. So this little letter, like formed like this, is a P. Then you have a Y going around it. It used to be pronounced as R, and then you have a R in this case. So it used to be pronounced. There is a A before it, an R afterward. A and R together is pronounced O. Well, and it used to be pronounced Bra, but it changed, and in Burmese now this would be Bjor. Bjor actually, Bjor. So if you see this box, you know that there is a glide following the consonant, so y. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's how it looks like. It's after the stop. Yeah, that's quite a common feature of writing systems based on Brahmi, on the ancient Brahmi alphabet, on all the Indian style alphabets, including Tibetan and Tibetan doesn't have this feature, but okay. So Hindi sometimes writes vowels before the consonant, but it's pronounced afterwards. So same as in Thai, you write E and then you write M, but you don't pronounce it M, but me. It just so happens. So you write the E before it, you write the R afterwards, you write the E on the top and the U below, and this is pronounced no, but if there's another consonant, it's pronounced nai. It's a very strange system. So vowels in those languages, in those alphabets, are usually placed around the consonant. It's quite confusing if you learn it, but once you get the hang of it, it's normal. Why you ask? No, no. Just kidding. It's confusing indeed. It's really it is confusing. Okay. Yeah. They are still kind of syllabic. Yeah. Yeah, they're still kind of syllabic, and the beginning of the Brahmi alphabet, you had one letter, and then a little hook to the left, a little hook to the right, little hook to the bottom, and so it worked a little bit of like Amharic, but then everything changed, and the little hooks got letters by themselves. So that's what happened. I'm running out of time. Damn. Okay, I will just quickly show Thai. Okay, I won't go into detail why tones arise in Thai, but these are the 4 tone marks, like wait, yeah. And they interact. The fascinating and difficult thing in Thai and Lao is that the tone characters are interacting with the syllable structure and the initial consonant. So we have different kinds of consonants, so-called high, low, and mid consonants, which do not represent the tones, but which influence the tones. So I will just show you these tables. So you have to know what the initial consonants, like ta in this case would be a high consonant, da would be a mid consonant, na would be a low consonant, but it's more complex because sometimes na can be in this category according to the writing. And then the syllable structure plays a role. If you have an open syllable ending in a vowel or ending in a nasal or a glide, so like ta or tan or tang or tau, they are in this category. If you have a stop at the end and the vowel is long, a different category. If it's a short vowel like tat, it's a different category. And then you have those tone characters which also show the tones. And this is a bit more visible. And yeah, you can derive this chart from that. So this you have, if you want to learn Thai, you have to keep this in mind. I can tell you that after half a year, you will automatize it, and then you will see the tones. I mean, you just read it and you automatically know the tones. But this is how I started. And the tones in Thai and Lao are different. Lao and Thai is very similar in writing, but they have different tones. So the same word that might be spelled the same in Thai and Lao would have a, well, okay, these tones are the same. These happen to be the same. But like in this case, we would have a low tone, but here we would have a falling tone. So tones in Thai and Lao are different. And in Shan is related to them. The writing is different, but still we have different tones that do not always match the other languages. And this is how Thai looks like. This is also the word for polyglot gathering on the shirt in orange on the top somewhere. These would be the single words, and you see Thai does not add spaces between the words. The pronunciation would beการประชุมกลุ่มผู้รู้หลายภาษา which literally means it means meeting of a group of people who know many languages. Yeah, polyglot. There's no word for polyglot. It just means people who speak many languages. Yeah. And here you can see the little tonal characters. This is the second tone. This is the first tone. But you see, those two have the same tonal character, but they are in different consonant categories. So this one is pronounced pu, and this one is pronounced ro. So they have different pronunciations, even though they are written with the same characters. Now, Tibetan. Tibetan is related to Chinese. I forgot an E in the word voiceless. Voiceless consonants have a high tone. Aspirated consonants have a mid or a high tone, and voiced consonants have a low tone. So, and sometimes additional letters are added to change the tones. It's a very confusing system. I don't know it by heart. I can read this, but I don't know the tones. I didn't memorize the tones. So all these letters have a high tone. All these letters will have a mid tone. All these letters have a low tone, and these as well. And for these letters, it's different, as you can see there.
So can we still talk about tones in this case? Because
Yeah.
it is dependent on the letter, on the sounds.
Yeah.
There are you kind of find me
Yeah. It can also mean tail, but yeah.
So the sound does not imply the tone.
Well, okay. For this example, for example, nga. I wasn't sure which one is which one, but one word is written with this nga, and the other one is. Do you know how it's written? It's probably written with an S on the top or a D before it, or. I have an example for this. This is. Let's talk about this word. If you look at letter by letter, it would be Begrashis bde lex. This is how you would tashidele. It's pronounced tashidele, not Begrashis bde lex. But these letters all influence. So you have bde, and probably this influences the tone of the letter. Or in this case, you had the K, and if you remember, the K was in the first category, so I think it was the high tone. But you have a B before it, so the B is in the low tone category and changes the tone of this, so it would be da and not bgra. Yeah. Da. Yeah, it's da, not ta. Yeah, that's true. I remember. Oh God, it was in my first semester when I took Tibetan. I can sort of read it, but yeah, not fluently. So this is the text. This is how it looks like if you transcribe it like das bar masoms maongski rmilam matongs. But it's if you listen to Tibetan, it sounds very much like a normal language. Like, sorry, no, it sounds very much like Chinese or Burmese. So it would be something like daba mason maongchi milam tong or something like that. It's not as it looks like. The end of the talk. Oh my God, these are the sources I used, and now we have 4 minutes for questions. Yes. Should I pass around the microphone better? Yeah.
No, you can keep it.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask you, in this presentation you have used a lot of alphabets.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell in 3-4 sentences the process, how you type them into the computer?
Okay.
Do you have a list, or do you have some shortcuts? Or
That's a good question. So how do I type those? It depends. I sometimes use the original keyboard layout that's presented. For example, for Greek, you can just switch your keyboard on Windows or on Mac to Greek, and then you can type. And it's very easy because most of the letters in the Greek keyboard are on the same letters as the Latin keyboard. For Cyrillic, they are elsewhere, but yeah. And for Arabic, I just memorized the keyboard layout. For Georgian, I wrote my own keyboard layout. For Chinese, that might be interesting. How do we write Chinese? We don't have a keyboard with 3,000 characters. With the 3,000, yeah, like a large keyboard. Yeah, I didn't bring it here. No, you just write the pinyin and then you press spacebar and it turns it into the most probable character. And then you sometimes have to select. Oh no, I mean the second one. For Japanese, it's similar. You just write hanashi or something like that, and it will turn it into characters. For for Thai, I use a keyboard that I wrote myself, where the letters are also on the Latin letters. So things like that. For some languages like Punjabi, I don't have a keyboard, so I just select the characters in the char map, in the Windows character map that you can find in Windows. Sometimes, yeah. I'm used to Unicode, so I almost by heart know where they are, so I just search them and I select them. But yeah, it takes time if you don't know where the letters are. Yeah, it might take time. Okay, another question. Yeah.
You consider Swedish and Norwegian to be slightly tonal, but you don't consider Danish to be slightly tonal?
Good question. I simply didn't mention Danish. I'm not sure if Danish is said to have tones, but it has in the place where Swedish and Norwegian has the so-called tone 2, this anden, or however it's pronounced. Danish usually has this little glottal stop in between the word. So you have words like when, I think, where the glottal stop is after the n, and sometimes you have it in the vowel, but I think, well, it's the same reflex, but okay. Do you want to answer again to that? I think one of the words means duck, and one of the words means ghost or spirit, yeah, with the article or something. Yeah. Yeah, okay, but, well, who else wanted to say something?
I was just say, you don't have a stop in the middle of a vowel in Danish.
No, okay. Not in the middle, but after the vowel, before the final consonant. Right?
After the vowel, and therefore we say it's a glottal stop and not a tone.
Okay. So, but you have words like I don't know, dutton or something?
Well, for instance, I had an example yesterday where I used a sentence with the name Müller and the word Müller, which is mills. And those can be used in a sentence, and we have the stop Müller. Müller stops there, and Müller. Yeah, Müller. That's a name.
Okay. Yeah, it's my name. Okay. Another question? Should I more questions? Or should I just in one sentence or 1 minute say how I learned those writing systems? Maybe that would be interesting. Whenever I want to learn a writing system, I look at the system. I look at how it works, usually on Polyglot or some books that represent them, and then I start either trying to read a simple text, or more often I try to write German or English or Esperanto with those letters. So when I started learning, for example, Arabic, I actually learned Arabic script in the 4th grade or so, and I just started writing, cool, that's how Arabic works. Okay, so I want to write German in Arabic, so I just write something like hello, and just write it in Arabic. And at some point in time, I wrote in art class, I wrote everything in Gothic, and in mathematics class, I wrote everything in Cyrillic, but always in German. Then in art class, I switched to Sindarin alphabet, and well, I had a lot of free time. Okay. Okay, yeah. What else? No more questions? Yeah. I guess, thank you. And if you have more questions, you can always, I'm leaving today in the late evening, so you can always ask me about alphabets, about pronunciations of languages and tones. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.